Hey, do you have an idea for a podcast but don't know where to start? Or do you have an already existing podcast that you want to take to the next level? Well, check out WeKnowPodcasting.com. From concept development to theme music to editing to logos, WeKnowPodcasting.com is a one-stop shop for all things pod. Don't hesitate to hit us up. We're very nice.
Welcome to another episode of Horror Movie Night. This week we are talking about 1971's The Blood from the Mummy's Tomb. And you might be thinking, a Hammer film from 1971? Is Brian back on the show? No, this was a Scott pick. So Scott,
hey, Scott,
tell us about, I feel like right there with Giallo, Hammer film seems like one of those things that you would be extremely adverse to having us watch or discuss on this podcast.
Yeah, I think I fucked up this week, guys. I had the best of intentions. This was supposed to be, in my mind, I picked this months ago, and I was like, okay, this is going to be my idea of a Valentine's episode, because I thought that it was much more romantic than it is. It's not. This is my second watch. This is the only Hammer film I've watched twice. I mean, like, I've watched a good amount of Hammer, and I don't dislike Hammer films. I just find that they are very slow. And I thought that this one was much more fast-paced. And I also thought that Valerie Leon, lead actress, actually had brown hair. And so I was like, hubba hubba, that was a wig. So all of my expectations were ruined by rewatching this film and reading up about it. I don't know. Like, I think that the concept is cool, though. I really think that this movie is one of the better Hammers that I've seen. You know, there's stuff like Witchfinder General that I really want to like. And there's, the older Draculas and things like that, like the Hammer Draculas that I really want to like. And I just can't get into them. But this one did hold my attention both times I watched it. I just worry that there's not enough going on in it for us to really riff.
I think that's my problem that I have with most Hammer films, is that I've said this about the musician Dave Matthews Band, and I'll apply it to Hammer as well, is I used to say that I like every Dave Matthews Band song I hear, so long as it's not followed by another Dave Matthews Band song. And I feel like my tolerance for Hammer is like one at a time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I can sit down and enjoy like a 90-minute Hammer film for like what it is.
They're not even 90 minutes, dude. That's why it's like, I thought that this was going to be a slam dunk for us, because 70 minutes.
It's like 85 minutes. But it's very classy. It's very beautifully shot. Like, they're great. The times that I have watched Hammer films, and this sounds terrible, and people will be just dropping 1-star ratings all over this, I'm sure. But like, my best experience watching Hammer films has always been like, it's on in the background. I'm kind of like walking around doing stuff, but then like I'll stop and sit and watch like 15 minutes. I'm like, God, this is gorgeous. Yeah. And then I'll like go and like live my life. And then like the last 15 minutes happens. And I'm like, oh man, it got crazy. And then like I'm done for the day.
Yeah, I have a similar sort of feeling towards it. It's like, I feel like I've seen more than I have, but it's because the ones that I've seen feel like they just really encapsulate what the rest will be. So it's like, it almost feels like now that I've seen this, I won't watch another Hammer movie for I don't know how long.
A year, 2 years.
A few months at minimum, a year at most.
Know? Yeah, and it's not because I didn't like it's not fun to look at, or like the aesthetic is weird, or like the visuals are beautiful, or the wigs are just so spot on that like you couldn't tell anything different.
Hush, quiet, you.
Well, even like I'm gonna throw this out there: the sound engineering, the scene where the dude gets attacked by a snake in bed, like. That scene is fucking chaotic and crazy as hell, and the sound engineering in the background where you're like feeling just as unhinged and crazy as he is just by like all of these different noises happening simultaneously. It's like there are so many great things in Hammer.
Mm-hmm.
There's not like I've never watched a Hammer movie and been like, well, that was bad. It's just always been like, well, that wasn't for me.
That's not for me.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Right. But I want to keep trying. It's like they have such a big place in horror history and like I don't know.
Yeah,
it's just not. I think that's a pacing thing for a lot of different. I don't know if it's like British stuff anyway. Like that's sort of. I don't know.
There was British humor in the Hammer stuff, but they're just so dry. You know, like
They're
that's
so
really the
dry.
problem. I love them for really the only thing I like about Hammer, and it's a big thing, is I like the costuming, and that's really what they were doing, you know, like that's what their whole shtick was. They probably had, 50 outfits for each person, and they reused them. Like
it's so theatrical. Like it does. Like it's all the costuming
and the blood is so red.
And the sets are so cardboard, or like they're so plywood. Like when those rocks.
I was gonna say the red blood. The red blood is like the thing I think of when I think of Hammer, and I wish that there was more of it. Like every time that it cut to just that never-ending bloody stump throughout the movie, I was just like, more of that.
Please,
please more of that.
And I didn't even think about it the first time I watched it, but I really do have to give them props for the way that they handled a disembodied hand in 1971. I think that they did a really good job, because I know exactly how they were doing it. I'm not an idiot. I mean, I'm an idiot in other ways, but not that specific way. I understand how they were doing it when they're getting it to like walk across the sand and stuff. And I still think that that is the one thing about this film that holds up. Nothing else really holds up except for the way that they made the hand move, and that's pretty important because it's the main antagonist, really. There's some really interesting history behind this movie that I found to be way more entertaining than the second watch. But the dad, Professor Fuchs, was supposed to be played by Peter Cushing, and because Peter Cushing was like, he did everything in Hammer, but he was only on set for one day, because the second day he was supposed to come back to continue filming, his wife was diagnosed with emphysema and he quit. So it's just very interesting what this movie could have been if we had, but also could Peter Cushing have brought gravitas to this? I don't know. There was a lot going on with the script, because it's an adaptation of the Bram Stoker novel, The Jewel of Seven Stars. And that has to do with the ring, right? And they're talking about how, like, the stars align, and then, like, the evil Egyptian queen can come back to life. I wouldn't be adverse to, like, reading that, because it sounds super fun to me. But in any case, it was originally, based on that. And the original writer, which I didn't write down his name.
I think I read one of these facts too, that they basically like booted him off of set.
And he still was able to, like,
losing his mind that they were like changing so much of it. They're like, you can't be here, dude.
Yeah.
Like, this is how movies work. Sometimes scripts change.
Yeah, but the fun thing is that he still got like messages from the production.
From within.
Somebody was, somebody
it was a real Island of Lost Souls type situation.
Yeah, exactly. Let's not put this on the level of insanity of, Island of Dr. Moreau. But the director, his name was Seth Holt, and he died of a heart attack 5 weeks into the 6-week shoot. He collapsed into one of the women's arms who was working, one of the cast members, and he died on set. And then it was finished by another guy named Michael Carreras. I believe he was the one that was working on the story or working on the adaptation, and so that's why he kind of just had the rest of the production dropped in his lap. So it does kind of come up as a quote-unquote cursed film. When you hear about cursed films, you hear Exorcist and Twilight Zone. You don't hear about Blood from the Mummy's Tomb.
Yeah. It's either the Fatty Arbuckle biopic, or there's like another one. I think it's called like Wagons East or something like that. But it's two different... Actually, I think it's both of them. But they're two films where every time they cast the lead, they died the same year that they were cast.
Wow.
And both cases, it was John Belushi first, then John Candy, then Chris Farley. Fuck. All three of those dudes were cast in the same roles and died before they could start production on those films. So like those have been considered like cursed scripts. Like,
wow.
I don't know. I also take it from the perspective of like, John Hughes very infamously, when John Candy died, walked away from Hollywood and really never did anything else. I think he like ghost wrote 2 scripts or something like that in like the last 25 years of his life, because he was like, my friend could have lost weight and been fine, but you guys like made him feel like if he wasn't like fatty fall down, then like it wasn't worth him being out here. And it's like, okay, well, if you're making these movies, I don't think John Belushi or Chris Farley died because they got cast in a Fatty Arbuckle movie. I think they died because they were doing a lot of blow and heroin at the same time. Right. To like keep up with being able to do the pratfalls.
Cursed.
Yeah. It's that double thing where it's like, yeah, like you're being told like you have to be big. Like the bigger you are, the funnier people are going to find you in these movies. But then also like, hey, you're the pratfall guys. And it's like, how many of like the pratfall guys get hooked onto all these different painkillers because they're fucking throwing themselves against walls and downstairs. And it's a vicious spiral for those dudes. It's like, it's not a shock, but yeah, no, I
have a question for you. Did you guys both watch the Brittany Murphy documentary?
Oh, not yet. No,
I'm sure that'll destroy me.
Megan and I watched it a couple months back, and it's depressing as hell and pretty interesting. But the thing is that Kathy Najimy was like interviewed a shitload for it, because I guess that she was really close with Brittany Murphy. And Kathy Najimy is one of those people that lost a ton of weight, and I don't know if that had anything to do with her working less in Hollywood, but I don't know her reasonings, and I don't know how it affected her, how it affected her career, or if it impacted her career at all. But I always think about her in reference to like those large men who were comedians, because like Kathy Najimy, to me, maybe that's just because I watched Hocus Pocus as a kid, and whatever else she was in that I saw her as a kid.
Yeah, Sister Act,
yes. That, she was always the big lady.
And I want to clarify, like, I'm not saying this in a derogatory way at all, but it's the worst role to get stuck in. Your entire thing is just like, show up, you're dumb, you're clumsy, and everyone makes fun of your weight, and that's your entire character for this whole movie. Like, is the most demoralizing character that you can be cast as, and it's one of those roles that like once you get cast in it,
yeah, you're the guy.
So it's real hard for audiences to buy you as anything else than that.
Unless you want to make a change for your, like, really step off of the path, like off of the treadmill that's going really fast. Like, you're stuck on that.
That's like where you get someone like a Melissa McCarthy, where like, she's started to do a lot more serious dramatic roles, and like do like things where it's like, hey, I'm more than just like the big clumsy best friend to all of like the cute, skinny, hot characters. You know what I mean? It's like your body can't take that much falling down. You know what I mean? Like you can't be the clown always.
Why do we still make movies with pratfalls? It's fucking dumb. It's like the lowest hanging fruit. It's worse than fart jokes, in my opinion.
It's completely, I feel like it's completely fat phobic. Like it's like, it's, you have to, which is maybe an extreme word to say, but it's like you are putting people of that body shape and size in danger, whether it be for a joke or like for whatever. It's like that character endangers themselves because of their weight and clumsiness, and it's like that's completely fucked.
Laugh.
It's completely fucked. It's horrible. I didn't think about it until
welcome to horror movie night, where
we're totally fine with skinny people, doing their own stunts and getting hurt in horror movies, though. That's totally fine. We're saying that
there's professional stunt people for a reason.
Exactly. And, but anyway, what this movie does not have is any stunts.
No.
Bringing you back to
it's barely got action set pieces.
Dude, it
has blood, has mummy, and a tomb.
I'd even
say it did live up to its name.
I would even question it being a true mummy. I mean, look, she was completely lifelike and
there's no desiccation.
Really, there's nothing except for her hand, which was
if Hammer said that it's a mummy movie, so it's a mummy movie. We can't fight that.
My beer can has more mummy than blood.
What's your beer for the week?
It's Armada Brewing's Tomb of the Pharaohs, and it's got a nice old like classic wrapped mummy coming out right here, right now. But the thing that this mummy lacks is breasts. So
you don't know that they might be just wrapped up.
It's a give and take. It's a give and tape.
Love it.
Oh, dear Lord.
Fucking love a
You know
pun.
what? And I'm also going to, right now, I'll stand up for the Patreon people, but I'm rocking this Mahonin Drive-In Monster Squad shirt that I got during the double feature of Monster Squad and Wolfman's Got Nards. And I'll just say it. Mummy is the absolute worst of the 5 main Universal monsters. It's just never done in a franchise of films that we all clearly love, but we also have to explanation, not excuse for some of the problematic elements of a lot of those movies. A lot of problematic nature in the Mummy.
Oh yeah,
he's like a whole lot, a lot more than some of the other ones, but also just boring as fuck. Compared to
doesn't the first Mummy only have
Creature,
Mummy for 45 seconds to a minute?
Yeah, just pops up real fast. It's way more about this dude who wants to raise the mummy. The mummy raises.
What's up with mummy movies not being about a fucking mummy? This wasn't really about
Listen, when we get to what our double feature is, I'll tell you about a mummy movie
Give
that's
me
got
some
a
mummy,
fucking
baby.
mummy in it.
Give me some mummy.
It's got some mummy and it's got some daddy in it too. But
Oh,
we'll get
nice.
into that later.
So
yeah.
here's one thing I gotta say about mummy movies, and as a rule, and I absolutely agree with you both, that they're not very enticing films, especially as far as Universal monsters go. They are the driest, and that doesn't just have to do with the fact that they were packed with salt. I was a budding Egyptologist for a couple years as a child, so I know far too much about embalming mummy.
Dude, same.
Mummies and stuff
I
like
loved my mummy books.
dude. Or the DK. Did you have the DK
Yeah.
book? Oh, so good. I had books about hieroglyphics, and I wanted to learn how to read them and write them, and I knew all the gods, and I knew all their stories and epics. Between Greek mythology and Egyptian mythology, I was obsessed.
Yeah. I one year in elementary school tried to write a play and cast all my friends as Greek gods and other characters, and they were like, "No, we're reading Harry Potter. Please leave us alone."
That's
and
fantastic.
then I tried to make a Harry Potter play, and still nobody was wanting to be part of that at all. That was
just done it on the playground.
I don't know where. Well, all I wanted to do was have rehearsals on the playground and then do the show and have people read their lines. I was horrible.
So Kyle, I've got a much sadder version of that because I did the exact same thing as you're talking about.
Power Rangers.
I didn't have any friends, so I literally had toys that I directed. I took the toys to the corner and I was like, "Now your inspiration during this scene."
Absolutely.
All right, Race Stan's toy. Let's see how this goes. I think it's very telling that we are very close to episode 350, and in all that time, I'm pretty sure this is the first Mummy movie we've ever discussed, if you don't count, say, an ensemble cast of monsters.
Monster Squad. Well, so here's the thing that I do like about the concept of the Mummy, and I know this because when I had my 50s rock band Survivor Girl, where all the songs were based on the antagonists from horror movies, we did a creature triple feature, where it was 3 songs, 3 different styles, but it was basically one long song. But the first song was about a werewolf, the second song was about a mummy, and the third song was about the creature from the Black Lagoon. And the second song was about the mummy, and I wrote it from the point of view of the mummy, talking about how the mummy is this guy who was cursed because he loved the queen, right? So he was embalmed and his soul can't rest because he's trying to get his love back, and they're eternally separated by the gods, basically. And I love that concept. I think it's really cool, and there are so many cool things you can do with mummies where you talk about how the horrible torture of being basically a revenant, because you can't eat, you can't sleep, you can't do anything. You just exist in pain and physical and emotional and romantic pain. And there are just great ways to do that. And maybe it's just that no one has gotten their script written that goes into that, Or I mean, maybe not even the script's not written. It's the script has been written. It's
challenge has been thrown on the table.
I will write the hell out of that,
Let's fucking go. Let's do this. There needs to be a good mummy movie. Scott, you're absolutely right. The whole existence of a mummy and the reason that it's either reanimated or has not been dead anyway, and there's this soul torture that never gets talked about. Ancient tortured soul that does not get talked about in Mummies.
It wouldn't be expensive to make that movie.
No, dude.
Most of it could be
like,
VO.
Oh,
like, you don't even have to show
like
the fucking mummy till the end, just like the original Mummy.
I will tell you right now, this movie, Blood from the Mummy's Tomb, they spent more on the plywood hieroglyphic set than we would on our entire movie.
Yeah.
And my grandma made better hieroglyphics for my Halloween party in elementary school than Hammer did in that fucking basement tomb. I'll tell you what. Grandma Liz for the win.
Thanks, Grandma Liz. The best part about this movie, there was one part that made me laugh, is the part where where the Professor Fuchs is in the basement and he opens up I want to call it a glove box because it's got a hand in it, but he opens up the box and it's got the hand in it, and he just, it's basically like one smooth motion. He just like catches the quickest look and he just boop, closes it right back up. Nope, no thank you. He wasn't even scared or surprised. He's like, yeah, that's exactly what I was expecting under there. I laughed when I watched that the second time.
That was a good bit.
As we're talking about mummies, I just remembered something, and I did some quick Googling. And while doing the Googling, what I did find out was that there was a remake of this movie, sort of. It was another adaptation of the same Bram Stoker story. And my family rented it in 1998 because we were so baffled that Home Improvement's Al Borland was starring in a movie with Lou Gossett Jr. called Bram Stoker's Legend of the Mummy. And I think we made it about 30 minutes into it because it is fucking trash. And that's like... That is a 13-year-old Matt Kelly being like, "Can we shut this off?" Like, there
was another movie too that was based on that same story. Now I only know about 2, but there are 3 movies based on Jewel of 7 Stars.
Scream Factory put out both. I think Scream Factory put this one out and then put out The Awakening.
Yeah, The Awakening is the other, and The Awakening shares an actor with Blood from the Mummy's Tomb, which is so funny to me.
No shit. What's
it was the guy that played the priest.
It wasn't the Chris Parnell looking motherfucker with white streaks in his hair, like to
Love
make
that
him
guy.
Aged. Like, what the fuck was that? That character was out of control.
As long as we can make a movie about a mummy that has a better death scene than Todd's death scene in this, where he's in a stationary car and then they pretend like he's having an accident.
That was the funniest part to me. Like, that was, I would recommend folks, if you only want to see one part of this, if there was like the YouTube clip show where it was broken up into 10 clips from the movie that you could see, I would suggest that you watch that scene. And
probably the second or third to last scene from the movie if you're watching.
Which, I didn't feel like there was a lot of not much, like, those things should be high action, and they are so lame. They are so lame.
All they did was they just had somebody act, and then they just zoomed the camera in. It was great.
Oh my god!
All right,
really rough.
So there was a third adaptation of this book.
So that means 4.
So there was 4. Sorry, there was 4 adaptations of the book.
Good God.
From 1986, starring John Carden and Sybil Danning. And look at that fucking poster. That is a fucking poster right there. The Tomb from Trans World Entertainment.
I would love if somehow all 4 of these movies had the same big ass gumball machine size ring that is used throughout.
Hammer was like, yeah, just keep using it. We made that out of resin. We put 30 minutes into that.
You actually can't use the rights to the Jewel of the 7th Star without using that ring in the film that your adaptation.
Guys, we need to track it down. Who's got that eBay auction link for us?
It was almost as big as her whole hand, dude.
Yeah.
And I know that it only cost 50 cents. I bought one myself.
I love that she puts it on and then she gets picked up by her boyfriend and she has to like move her hair back over her ear for him to notice because he's a fucking moron.
Because and I don't know how. That dude must be blind in one eye. Like, that dude must have, like, really just, like, bad peripheral vision or something. It was crazy.
That Toxic Masculinity in 1971, he was like, I am not wearing glasses.
I don't need them.
I'm getting real deep into the the backstory of this The Tomb movie. Side note, the director who made this movie has insane credits, including Evil Spawn, Beverly Hills Vampire, Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers.
What?
And Evil Tunes, and now...
Is it Warnowski?
No, it's like Fred something.
Fred
Owen Ray.
Fred Olin Ray, yeah.
Olin Ray.
He's,
So let me read just a couple of the films that he's directed in just the last like 3 or 4 years. And I think you'll get a vibe of where his career has led him. A Christmas in Royal Fashion, A Wedding for Christmas, A Christmas Princess, Baking Christmas, One Fine Christmas, A Royal Christmas Engagement, and The Killer in My Backyard, which came out last year.
That went exactly the opposite direction I thought you were going to go, because for a guy that did Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers, I thought for sure he was going to do the Wynorski, where it's only going to be like aging porn stars with massive breast implants,
right?
Like pumping out 6 of those a year, because that's what Wynorski does nowadays.
And it is something else. Yeah, I those two had a very parallel career, and then now completely other way. But
it's like the mirror broke.
Yeah, that's what a lot of those independent studios end up doing if they're still around, and if they have a history of like horror. Like, so we have a studio here in Connecticut that did all like a bunch of Sci-Fi Channel and Chiller originals, and I mean, so they're already, I guess they had a foot in the TV world, but now they're cranking out like 4 Hallmark movies a year here in Connecticut.
Well, that's where the money is. Have you seen Matt Kelly's Instagram in December?
I know. Well, that's even
absolutely it.
Look at like a mutual friend of, I'm pretty sure a mutual friend of all 3 of ours, but like Rebecca McKendry.
Oh yeah.
It's like if you can get in at Lifetime or Hallmark, you're good. Like you will be a working director.
Yeah, that pays the bills until you get to make the movie you want. Yeah,
like it's like that's the, and same with an actor. If you're an actor and you get your foot in the door at like a Lifetime or Hallmark movie, and you're like easy to work with and they like you, you never have to worry about where the paycheck is going to be coming from for at least a decade. They will find ways to use you.
You know, that puts the puzzle pieces together in such a weird way in my brain, because when I go digging, just to like follow hashtags on the HMN Insta, so much overlap of Hallmark Lifetime shit and horror actors. And I'm like, why? It seems so dichotomous, like weird. But Matt, you just blew my mind, buddy. Thank you so much.
Not for anything, but it's like, especially if you get into the Lifetime route that's not Christmas, you can
Who watches them though?
Well, so dude, I mean, look, I don't know the demographic, but people do. Like, there's a huge demographic for him. I guess that's not true. My grandma told me in July that she'll just put on Hallmark in the background because it's like it's easy and doesn't.
Oh, it's like,
but it's still like a story.
Comfort. Yeah,
it's absolutely a comfort. It's like the same. I mean, this like our comfort of throwing stuff in the background is a Hammer movie, but like my grandma's is Hallmark, and I think that like but then they get caught into that, and it's like, well, I know that if they want to watch a thriller, then they watch Lifetime at night, and it's like they're still cookie cutter movies, but there's creativity within the storyline. So it's like all the beats are the same, like it's the choreography is the same, but what is placed within the choreography is completely different, if that makes any sense.
And I think that's when you think about like when you're a horror fan, like, why do we like almost every 80s slasher film that we watch is because it's a very specific format that we know it's going to follow.
But the story can be insane, like a Psycho Killer Grandma. Insane. Like is that's also a Lifetime movie.
That's why I fucking love these Netflix Christmas movies. Like they are fucking bonkers, and they're all Vanessa Hudgens. Like she just keeps getting tossed in there, but it's like
you made Kyle choke on his beer.
It's like the Princess Switch trilogy.
I know there's a lot of them are Vanessa Hudgens, but they're not all Vanessa Hudgens.
They're almost all.
One was Brooke Shields.
So she's in. I've talked about this on the I Love Trash podcast because I've talked about the second and now the third Princess Switch film. The third Princess Switch film is a heist movie in which 3 of the people doing the heist are all Vanessa Hudgens. Like that's like where this movie gets to. And then there's also The Night Before Christmas, spelled with a K, in which a knight is forced forward in time to modern day and has to make a Christmas miracle happen to go back to medieval times, but he falls in love with Vanessa Hudgens and he's like, I don't want to go back to the time frame that I came from. But then they're like, it's a whole fucking multiverse.
He could just
I don't want to live
get
here
with her
anymore.
And then like bounce and no responsibilities.
Nope. No, he has true love.
He's a knight, Scott. There's a whole thing of
chivalry.
Honor. God,
chivalry. You're right. He wouldn't have even touched her. He would just pine for her from afar.
But the time frame that he's coming from is the same kingdom as the Princess Switch movies take place, and then there's the Christmas Prince trilogy, and in the first Princess Switch movie, the one character's like, here, let's sit down and watch your favorite movie, and they fucking log on to Netflix and start watching the Christmas Prince, and I'm like, what is happening?
This is like the Dark Tower of Christmas movies. This is Stephen King is
Netflix
so pissed off right now.
They've built their own multiverse of like this whole fucking MCU of Christmas movies over at Netflix.
Fucking hate that, and I love it at the same time.
You are so gonna watch all of them this December. Like,
oh
it's
happening.
Don't
I made such a mistake bringing it up. I'm seeing Matt light up.
I'll tell you what. You and I will take a
Christmas.
ride together. We'll synchronize watches. I'll be like, hey,
horror movie night.
You want to watch Princess
Patreon
Switch tonight?
bonus.
And we'll just both watch it.
Dude. Oh my god, I need to know.
The smell of the video store. I love this place.
Do you remember when you could just look at the walls of covers?
We had to choose just by looking at the cover and reading the crappy synopsis.
You were leaving with one.
And the only way to know what new movies were coming out is you actually had to watch the trailers instead of skipping them.
Right, we didn't have the internet to look it up. We had one guy named Todd behind the counter that would tell us what was good or not.
And Todd strangely liked way too many romantic comedies.
Yes, but you always knew when the boobies were coming because Todd made sure.
Oh, and remember all the awful CG we had to put up with in the mid-90s?
We talk about that a lot, don't we?
Join us on Analog Jones and the Tempo Film, where we talk about VHS tapes.
And we wax nostalgia like none other.
I think we've gone as far as we could possibly go.
Away from Blood from Mummy Studio.
Yeah. All right, so Scott, what's your double feature on this bad boy?
I'm gonna fix the evening. I was gonna say night, but I didn't want to have the KNIGHT in here. So I'm gonna fix my evening by getting a truly romantic horror movie, and that has a similar title. I'm gonna go with My Bloody Valentine.
All right.
I'm gonna finally see the unedited version because I still haven't.
Yes. I promised a mummy, and I promised a daddy. And that's why I'm going to watch 1999's The Mummy starring Brendan Fraser.
You telegraphed
Absolutely.
that so bad, dude. Like,
I know. It's all right.
You know how I talked about a couple weeks ago about how I'm bad at the long con? You're worse.
Yep. That's why they tune in. I can fix it in editing, but I'm not going to this time. Anyway, Kyle, double feature it for us, baby.
I ended up going with another Bram Stoker novel adaptation, which is Lair of the White Worm by Ken Russell.
That's so fun! Yeah!
Dude, I think it's Ken Russell.
Yep,
Who ended up,
it is.
A true master, but also what the fuck is happening? It'll be really a nice change of pace from the very like sterile, little bit slow, even though it's not as slow as other Hammer. It'll be a nice change of pace and a little more what the fuck happening.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Just a smidge.
Each week on the One Hit Thunder podcast, we welcome a special guest to come take a deep dive into a one-hit wonder artist with us. And together, we decide if that artist brought the one-hit thunder or was nothing more than a one-hit blunder. You can find One Hit Thunder anywhere that you listen to podcasts, so hit that subscribe button and join in on the fun each week.
All right, Scott, you know what comes up next, baby. What did you watch, see, talk about, etc.?
So I gotta talk about Eyes of Tammy Faye. Fantastic film. I was
Michael
not...
Showalter directed.
That explains everything. So that was a 2021 movie, right?
Yeah,
yes.
that was one of my favorite films of the year. I loved that. I saw that in theaters.
Wow.
Very empty screening of that movie.
Yeah.
I think it deserves an award this year, but not for what you think it deserves. I think that the special effects need an award because I love when an actor submerges themselves so heavily into a character that you no longer see them. And a lot of that has to do with the costuming and the makeup. I mean, the facial prosthetics on both Jessica Chastain and Andrew Garfield are incredible because they're smiling and they're laughing and they're singing and they're close-ups. And I know that Jessica Chastain's cheeks don't look like that and her teeth don't look like that, but it is such an amazing, like, vision.
And that's that was her passion project. She's been working on trying to get that movie made for like a decade. Yeah.
Absolutely loved it. And it got me thinking a lot about, again, I mean, not like it's too far from my mind, but it got me thinking again about the evils of prosperity gospel and how recent it is. It just seems like it's so interesting to think about the fact that it has existed just longer than I have, but it's always been a part of my life, obviously, because it was status quo by the late 80s when I knew what it was. I mean, I didn't know it was called prosperity gospel, but I mean, I knew what it was, and just so fucking good.
Yeah. And I think it captures like a thing that I know is near and dear to my heart, and having conversations with Kyle, I feel like I could say the same for him, is like that movie in 2 hours really captures like there are two types of Christians in the world, like the ones who get it and have the best intentions in the world, and the people who have completely misunderstood every aspect of what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
If they identify as that.
And like, shout out to Vincent D'Onofrio for being the bad guy again.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, that's just they somehow choose the wrong choose your own adventure answer every time. like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that like there's the beautiful and troublesome thing about Christianity, and I suppose any religion, but Christianity, as far as my experience, is that like you really can have the beautiful experience that I believe it to be, but then there are so many like you can absolutely terrorize the world with it too.
There are a lot more people that are doing the latter than the former, like you are.
Thank you, but I also I think that it is. And that's, I'm excited to watch that movie. Tammy Faye is so interesting. And all of those, like, I don't know. That whole story is, really interesting. I'm excited to check that out.
I mean, she was just a punchline my entire life. And then as we were watching it, Megan's doing, like, deep dives on the internet on her phone. And she's, like, telling me extra stuff. And I'm just, like, blown away. So, absolutely.
Well, her son is a fucking badass, too, actually. Jay Baker. I'm going to keep mine short because I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who's seen it out here. Scream 2022, had a blast. I think it is right there with Scream 2 and 4 for me. Is just a really fucking good time, and Radio Silence can do no wrong. That is my review. Dylan and I from Christmas 365 found the weirdest loophole to do a whole episode about Scream 5, strictly just based on the fact that Screams 1 and 2 came out in December, right before Christmas time. So let's talk about Scream 5. Yeah, if you want to get a deeper review on that, go check out that episode of Christmas 365 from a few weeks ago.
I reintroduced myself to a Discovery Channel show called Movie Magic from '94, and I had vivid memories of watching a TV program about special effects miniatures, and then some other sometimes another episode which it pops into my head about explosions. And I remember watching that show as a kid and being so taken aback at the things that make movies. Like, I understood what movies were, and then I understood that this is behind the scenes. But I couldn't believe what they were doing to then put it to the movies I was watching. And so I didn't comprehend what that was, and I have memories of it. And it popped into my head the other night, and I was like, I need to figure out what it is. Like, I just need to figure out what is happening. And I found out that it was a show called Movie Magic on Discovery Channel. There's a whole YouTube playlist of the episodes. Somebody taped them. They are, they are taken from their TV and put up. I don't know. I wanted to say it was 80 episodes, but I don't think it was that many. 50 maybe. It ran from 94 to 97, and it's so fun. They go and they talk to... I only watched 3 episodes so far. One was optical effects, and they talk about the optical printer and how it was used in King Kong, and then how it's used in a bunch of stuff. It was just really interesting. And then, but they also talked to I just wish I remembered the names before just going off on this tangent. There's a lot of horror overlap too. A lot of effects guys that are doing, they talk about Death Becomes Her a lot, on one episode. And now you're just like, what? Oh, Carnosaur. Oh my God. Yeah. Dude, they talk Carnosaur in the 3rd episode. They have a whole segment about Carnosaur. because Roger Corman's producing it, and it's like obviously easy to like get in touch. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, I might have known about Carnosaur before I knew about literally any other horror movie in my lifetime because I watched that show. Anyway, they're 22-minute episodes because they're 30 minutes for cable in 94. They're so fun. Highly recommend. I wanted to be a costume designer because of that show. I wanted to be a stunt person because of that show. I wanted to be like literally everything before I landed on being like, oh, I guess I want to do what I'm doing now. I wanted to do like all like the niche shit. Like I wanted to, oh my God, like I wanted to go to Tom Savini's like makeup school that got advertised in Fangoria so badly. And like but I had no talent in that realm at all.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, but this is involved in all the movies that I like. So I want to be like, that was what it was. Like, that's what movie magic was. That's what Fangoria was. That's what like, until I landed on like, oh, I'm writing and directing and I can do that. It's crazy.
Something that didn't have a ton of special effects, The Blood from the Mummy's Tomb from 1971, picked by Scott. We'll be back next week for yet another pick in the Horror Movie Night archives or archives, whatever, our pantheon of films.
The library.
And we'll be back next week with some of that good stuff.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network. You're listening to the Geekscape Network.